Fear is a universal experience, one felt at various moments in life. From the earliest biblical accounts, we see that fear was present, even among the greatest heroes of faith. Throughout the Bible, there are stories of characters who faced their fears and found a greater strength in God. Today, let's explore how these biblical figures overcame profound fears in situations that may even mirror our own challenges. But before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Biblical Tales and Prayers. Here, we share inspiring stories to strengthen your spiritual journey. The first fear in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve. The first experience of fear in humanity happened in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve broke the trust they had with God by eating the forbidden fruit. In Genesis 3, we see that they felt shame and fear upon realizing their disobedience. They hid from God among the trees, afraid of judgment. This initial fear reflects a question we still face: the fear of the consequences of our mistakes. How many times do we feel the need to hide, afraid of what others may think or fearing divine judgment? But even in this moment of error, we see that God did not abandon Adam and Eve. He sought them out, showed them the consequences, but also initiated a plan for redemption. This story reminds us that, even in our mistakes, God is always willing to reach out to us. If you have ever felt afraid of the consequences, of judgment, or of failure, this is the place for you. Subscribe to Biblical Tales and Prayers to find inspiration in God's Word and in biblical stories of redemption. Moses and the fear of inadequacy. Moses, a central figure of the Old Testament, was chosen by God to lead the people of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. But upon receiving this call, Moses had doubts and fears. In Exodus 3 verse 11, he questioned, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Moses was afraid of failing, feeling inadequate for the mission. He also feared his own lack of speaking ability, believing he wasn't the ideal messenger. This fear is something we often feel too. When we are called to something greater, it's common to doubt our abilities. But God responded to Moses with a promise: "I will be with you." And not only that, God provided help by sending Aaron, Moses' brother, to assist him in speaking. How many times do the fear of failure and the feeling of inadequacy paralyze us? Moses teaches us that when God calls us to a mission, He also equips us and walks with us, even if we don't feel ready. If you have ever faced the fear of failing or feel that you're not up to the challenges, don't miss out. Subscribe now to Biblical Tales and Prayers and receive content that will help you strengthen your faith and face difficulties with courage. David and his courage against the giant Goliath. Who hasn't heard the story of David and Goliath? David was a young shepherd, the youngest among his brothers, and inexperienced in battles. When he saw Goliath, a giant Philistine warrior, intimidating the army of Israel, David was filled with inspiring courage, something his brothers and the other soldiers didn't understand. Despite the apparent danger, David declared, "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." 1 Samuel 17 verse 37. For David, the secret to his courage lay in his trust in God and in past experiences, where he saw God act on his behalf. He knew that the same God who protected him before would protect him again. David shows us that, in the face of the giants we encounter, our courage should be founded on faith and on remembering what God has already done in our lives. When we look back and see God's hand, it gives us strength to face anything. Did you enjoy David's courage? Then subscribe to Biblical Tales and Prayers. Here, you'll find stories like this to strengthen your faith and remind you that God is with you in every battle. Esther and the fear of risking her life for her people. Esther was a young Jewish woman who, by God's providence, became queen of Persia. When the Jewish people were threatened with extermination, her cousin Mordecai asked her to plead with the king to save their nation. But there was a problem. Approaching the king without being called could result in her death. Esther knew the danger and feared what could happen. Yet, after fasting and seeking God, she courageously went to the king, saying, "If I perish, I perish." Esther 4 verse 16. Esther's courage shows us that, often, we are called to risk something important to fulfill a greater purpose. The fear of danger is real, but when we trust in God, we are empowered to move forward, even in risky situations. Want to discover more examples of courage and purpose? Subscribe to Biblical Tales and Prayers and receive content that will strengthen your trust in God. Peter and the fear of persecution. Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples, faced a different kind of fear, the fear of persecution and pain. When Jesus was arrested, Peter, who had once promised to never abandon the Master, denied Jesus 3 times, afraid for his own safety. This is a fear many of us relate to, the fear of rejection, pain, and the consequences of following our faith. But Peter's story doesn't end there. He was forgiven by Jesus, and later became a courageous leader and a fundamental figure for the early church, to the point of facing death for his faith. Peter's redemption and transformation show that fear can be overcome and that God gives us new opportunities to live courageously. Peter is an example that, although we may fail because of fear, God always gives us the chance to rise and continue. He understands our weaknesses and strengthens us to be stronger the next time. If you want to strengthen your faith and discover more stories of courage, subscribe to Biblical Tales and Prayers. Our content is for those who want to live a faith without fear. Overcoming fear in the Bible. Fear is a common human experience, but the Bible teaches us that we can overcome it when we place our trust in God. The stories of Adam, Moses, David, Esther, and Peter show us that even the greatest heroes of faith faced fears. However, they all found courage in their relationship with God. Let's close with a powerful promise in Isaiah 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you and uphold you with my righteous right hand. Want more inspiration to face your fears? Subscribe now to Biblical Tales and Prayers and discover how faith can transform your life. May God bless you and fill you with courage.